Hi everybody, I'm Leah Potts, your 2017 Our World Underwater Scholarship Society North American Rolex Scholar. I'm speaking to you from Shanghai, China, where I am currently visiting Shanghai Jiao Tong University's Institute for Underwater Technology. We will get to that in a little bit though. Right now I just want to take this time to update you on my amazing year so far. I started out the year with a few goals. As an avid cave diver armed with an engineering degree, my main interests lie in underwater exploration, as well as engineering a more sustainable relationship with water through better technology and management. I wanted to literally dive into my year by first going through basic rebreather training early in the scholarship. I set this goal primarily because rebreathers are incredible tools for exploration and science, allowing us warmer, safer, and longer dives, but they also require training and continual practice. So my first scholarship experience was to take a Subgravity Defender air diluent training course right here in Florida. The week-long course taught me how to dive all over again without bubbles, and gave me the skills necessary to safely dive the unit. My second goal was to learn how to use the photography equipment provided to scholars so that I could better document and share this year. Fellow scholar May and I headed to Denmark, where we spent time with the professional photography team at Photograph-It, learning the ins and outs of our camera kits. We spent time in the pool, taking thousands of practice pictures before shore diving to test what we had learned. The other two goals that I initially set were to gain more experience with cold water diving and to get involved in research and engineering-based experiences by visiting various institutions. I accomplished both of these on my next stop in Longyearbyen, the northernmost settlement of the world, halfway between Norway and the North Pole. I met up with Professor Borge Damsgaard, who showed me around UNIS, the university center in Svalbard. This is the only university in the world equipped with enough Arctic field gear to make any gear junkie jealous, and that also requires polar bear rifles be checked at the door. So, remember that goal I set about cold water diving experience? Well, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it, and so much more. Next up, I boarded the ocean-wide expedition ship Plancius, along with Faith Routines of DUI and her group of divers, where we headed out for a week of diving in the freezing Arctic Ocean. Along with whale, polar bear, and walrus sightings, we planned and executed dives at sites that had never been explored before. This experience with dive operation planning, along with the knowledge gained from nightly medical lectures by the trip's diving doctors, made this experience invaluable. From the Arctic, I headed back to the east coast of the US, where I crossed over my rebreather training onto the KISS Sidewinder and Sidekick units. These units are side mount rebreathers, which take the bulk of the unit off of your back and distribute it along your sides, making them useful tools for exploration and research in tight spaces. Eager to learn more about diving and expedition operations, I hopped on another plane to the West Coast, touching down in Seattle, where Executive Officer of the NOAA Diving Center, Lieutenant Commander Faith Knighton, welcomed me into her home and office. She showed me how NOAA supports over 400 divers each year, and even took me on a chamber dive in one of NOAA's many teaching chambers. I also stopped into the National Geographic Lindblad Seattle office to visit with Michelle Graves. Michelle kindly organizes a Lindblad trip for each scholar's year and showed me all the planning that goes into every single expedition. Bitten by the cold water diving bug, I headed to a floating diver oasis called the Hideaway. Located on the northern tip of Vancouver Island in the waters of Browning Pass, this former logging and fishing village makes for the perfect base to see the incredible life that fills every nook and cranny of the pass. From sheer cliffs covered in anemones to seamounts teeming with aquatic life, I saw it all in 4 days of diving. There's no connection to the outside world at the Hideaway, and I spent lots of time with the other divers there, international professionals who helped me further refine my videography skills. After looking down the plunging walls of Browning Pass to see endless dark ocean, I was curious to know more about what was down there and how we can explore it. This led me to Vancouver City, where I visited Nudico, leader in underwater submersible engineering. With suits and subs rated to 3,000 plus meters, the possibilities are endless. I even spent a whole afternoon witnessing NASA perform a test dive of the signature exosuit. It's not every day you get to see a man in a wearable submarine being craned into a test pool. I followed up with a visit to the Vancouver Aquarium, particularly the Ocean Pollution Research Program, where I was able to take part in cutting-edge microplastics research using Fourier transform infrared technology. This machine allows researchers to identify plastics composition and pinpoint where it is coming from in an effort to stop it. My next stop was in the complete opposite corner of North America, the Florida Keys, where I met up with professionals from the training agency TDI to help on a photo shoot for their upcoming promotional and training materials. Here I was given lots of tips about shooting videography and also learned a lot about the teamwork necessary to ensure every shot is captured in a limited amount of time. With dive equipment still wet in my bags, I switched gears entirely, flying back across the Atlantic to the Netherlands, where I joined Florida Earth Foundation on a professional development program for water resources professionals. The majority of the Netherlands lies below sea level, so the Dutch have engineered incredible infrastructure to keep the ocean at bay. We spent a week visiting these massive feats called the Delta Works and the various institutions that work with water in the Netherlands, cooperating with them to come up with ways to share water knowledge across the world. After the program was completed, I traveled to Texel, a small island in the northern Netherlands. Here I visited two institutions, the first being Wageningen Marine Research. At Wageningen I worked with Dr. Joop Koelen, whose research focuses on the identification of species that colonize artificial structures in the North Sea, such as wind turbines and oil platforms. After days of identifying and counting creatures through a microscope, I understood the importance of knowing what species live where and the impact of artificially engineered structures on the ocean environment. At the Royal Netherlands Institute for Sea Research, otherwise known as NIOS, I learned about how they not only perform cutting-edge ocean research and engineering, but they also fabricate many of their scientific instruments right there in-house. Ready to head underwater again, I flew to Malta, a small island country in the Mediterranean Sea. I was met by John Kendall, world-renowned GUE instructor and an expert in underwater 3D photogrammetry. John spent several days diving with me, teaching me how photogrammetry is used to construct models of underwater archaeology sites for research and conservation purposes. He walked me through the process of taking the overlapping photos and the workflow necessary in the photogrammetry software. What seemed relatively simple on land took on a different degree of difficulty in the water. But under John's careful guidance, I ultimately created this model of the bow of the P-29 wreck in Malta. After a brief few weeks at home, I flew here to Shanghai, where I am working with a researcher who specializes in the areas of diver physiology and underwater technology, particularly at altitude and inside manned submersibles. The first half of my year has been filled with educational and awe-inspiring experiences, and I'm certain the remaining months will be just as productive and memorable. Goodbye for now, but I look forward to sharing this with you all in person at DEMA.